I'm a 35-year-old woman who, along with my younger sister Clara, 29, endured years of emotional neglect and blatant favoritism from our extremely religious and conservative parents. They always craved a son, and when he finally arrived, our brother, Leo, 23, we became afterthoughts. Our grandparents were our true sanctuary. Now Clara is getting married. When our parents tried to insert themselves into her wedding for appearance's sake, demanding traditional roles they never earned, Clara made a bold choice. She asked our beloved grandpa to walk her down the aisle. The fallout was spectacular. This isn't just a wedding drama, it's a story about breaking free from a toxic family system, the pain of parental narcissism, and the healing power of found family and boundary formation. Witness our journey as we confront our parents' hypocrisy, their gaslighting attempts, and their ultimate irrelevance in our lives. From a childhood marked by conditional love in Mobile, Alabama, to a wedding that celebrated genuine connection, this story is for anyone who has ever felt like an outsider in their own family and fought for their right to happiness. The humid air of Mobile, Alabama, always carried a certain weight for me, a mix of sweet gardenia and the heavier, unspoken burdens of my childhood. I'm Sarah, 35 years old, and my family life has been a study in contrasts. I have two younger siblings, Clara, my sister, who's 29, and Leo, our brother, who's 23. Our parents, devoutly religious and staunchly conservative, always seemed more concerned with their societal image, their standing within the church and our old money Mobile community, than with the actual emotional well-being of their children, especially their daughters. They'd always yearned for a son. My grandmother, Nana Rose, a woman of sharp wit and even sharper insights, once told me that when their firstborn, was revealed to be a girl, my parents actually contemplated not going through with the pregnancy. A chilling phrase for a child to ever overhear. Their religious convictions ultimately swayed them, but that initial disappointment set the tone for my early years. When I was just 2, my mother, apparently overwhelmed and depressed by having me around, Nana Rose's words again, delivered with a sigh, sent me to live with my grandparents. Those 5 years with Nana Rose and Grandpa Joe were an oasis of warmth and stability. Grandpa Joe patiently taught me to ride my bike in the shaded streets of our Spring Hill neighborhood, the thrill of pedaling on my own a potent metaphor for the independence they nurtured in me. Nana Rose, with her gentle hands and encyclopedic knowledge of all things botanical, taught me the magic of gardening, a skill that still brings me peace today. My parents? They never once visited during those 5 years. Not until I turned 7 and people started questioning why I wasn't living with them. Then, despite my protests, despite the tears, they dragged me back to their sterile, emotionally cold house. The emotional neglect was a palpable thing, a constant ache. 3 years later, Clara was born. To my parents' renewed disappointment, another girl. Surprisingly, though, their approach with her was different, more relaxed. She wasn't sent away. The suffocating pressure to excel in every school subject, the endless extracurriculars designed to mold me into their vision of a perfect, accomplished, but ultimately marriageable daughter, were significantly lessened for Clara. It was as if they'd learned from their earlier parenting experiences, or perhaps simply tired of the effort, and decided on a more laissez-faire approach with her. The differences were stark. My achievements were met with a curt nod, a brief acknowledgement. Clara's smallest accomplishments were celebrated like major milestones. This unequal treatment, this blatant favoritism, created a confusing, often painful, dynamic. I made a conscious effort not to resent Clara. It wasn't her fault. And despite it all, we forged a close bond, 2 sisters navigating a landscape of conditional love. Then, 6 years after Clara, Leo was born, the son they'd always craved. And everything changed, again. Our parents threw a massive feast, a veritable jubilee, to celebrate his arrival. From that day forward, Leo was the sun around which their universe revolved. He had the fanciest clothes, the most expensive toys, a nursery that looked like something out of a design magazine, a stark contrast to the hand-me-downs and shared rooms Clara and I experienced. The golden child had arrived and we, his sisters, were relegated even further to the periphery. The disparity wasn't just material. They doted on Leo, chronicling his every baby milestone with endless photos and videos. They never missed his doctor's appointments, his playdates. For Clara and me, our grandparents had filled those roles. As Leo grew, he was exempt from household chores, excused from responsibilities that were an integral part of our daily routines. His birthdays were grand, elaborate affairs with expensive presents. Ours were acknowledged. The feeling of being left out, of being secondary, became a constant companion for both Clara and me. To be fair, by this point I had become somewhat inured to their treatment. But for Clara, this was a new, painful experience, a fresh wave of the neglect I'd known since childhood. Our grandparents' home became our refuge more than ever. Countless afternoons were spent in their rambling backyard, listening to Grandpa Joe's stories by the fireplace in winter, sharing our fears, our dreams, our frustrations with the suffocating atmosphere at home. Nana Rose would always reassure us, her words a balm to our bruised spirits, telling us we weren't alone, that our feelings were valid. As a teenager, I was labeled the rebel child. I dared to have different political beliefs, to question their rigid dogma. When I tried to explain my views, Mom would often burst into tears, accusing me of stressing her out. Any expression of sadness or anger on my part was met with her disapproval, her cold shoulder, her pronouncement that she couldn't stand to be around me when I was like that. She would then ignore me for hours, sometimes days. The emotional invalidation was a powerful tool of control. Clara, as she got older, began to assert her own individuality, and with it, developed anxiety and occasional panic attacks. Mom's response? She refused to get Clara professional help, insisting she didn't really need it, that she was just being dramatic or burdening them. The medical neglect, born of ignorance and a desire to maintain their perfect family image, was heartbreaking to witness. There was one particularly awful night. Our parents, in a fit of frustration over some perceived slight, I can't even remember what it was now, launched into a tirade about how Clara and I were such disappointments, how we should never have been born. Their words were like acid, drowning us in a sea of shame and hurt. Feeling lost, utterly broken, Clara and I packed our bags that night and fled to our grandparents' house. When our parents showed up the next morning, demanding we come home, Grandpa Joe, usually the calmest, most composed man I knew, finally lost his temper. He erupted. He yelled at my father, his voice shaking with a rage I'd never witnessed, telling him he should be ashamed for treating his own children so cruelly. He threatened to call Child Protective Services if they ever harmed us again. That scared them. Leo was still young, and the thought of losing custody of their precious son, the public shame of it, was enough to make them back down. Grandpa Joe's fierce defense, his declaration that we deserved better parents, was a turning point. It was the first time anyone had truly stood up for us against them. After that night, things at home shifted, slightly. The overt yelling and punishments lessened, replaced by a more subtle, icy disapproval. But Leo remained the cherished one, his path smoothed by their unwavering adoration and financial support. When it was time for me to go to college, my parents were vehemently against it. A girl just needs to focus on getting married, having kids, Mom had declared. Too much education isn't attractive to men. Dad joined in, mocking my ambitions. Despite their protests, their refusal to pay a cent, I went. I'd earned a full academic scholarship to Emory University in Atlanta, an honors program. Their anger at my defiance was palpable, but I didn't care. I worked part-time jobs, saved every penny, and relished the independence, the intellectual stimulation, the taste of a world beyond their narrow expectations. Living alone, managing my finances, my studies, my social life. It was a crash course in adulting, and it made me stronger, more self-reliant. My contact with my parents dwindled to almost nothing, generic holiday greetings their only acknowledgement of my existence. It wasn't just me pulling away, they seemed content with the distance. The only family member I remained in constant, close contact with was Clara. When it was Clara's turn for university, our parents threatened to kick her out if she pursued higher education. Without hesitation, I offered her a place to live with me in Atlanta. I was working full-time by then, a junior analyst at a financial firm, and had a small 2-bedroom apartment. I was determined to give her the opportunities I'd had to fight so hard for. She moved in, enrolled in a local community college, and our bond deepened. We were a team, supporting each other, navigating the complexities of young adulthood without the safety net, or the suffocating weight, of our parents' involvement. Our brother Leo, meanwhile, sailed through life on a sea of parental approval and financial largesse. They paid for his college, his cars, the deposit on his first house. Clara and I would occasionally hear about his gilded existence from relatives, a stark, painful reminder of the blatant favoritism that had defined our upbringing. We didn't begrudge Leo his privileges, it wasn't his fault, but the injustice of it all still stung. A few years ago, Nana Rose passed away. Clara and I rushed back to Mobile to be with Grandpa Joe. It was the first time I'd seen my parents in years. They acknowledged me with a cool nod, their lack of warmth a familiar ache. After Nana's death, Clara and I made a conscious effort to spend even more time with Grandpa Joe, visiting him regularly, sharing meals, helping him around the house. He became our confidant, our rock. During one of those visits, he told me how proud he was of me, of the woman I'd become, of how I'd taken care of Clara. "Having a granddaughter like you makes an old man proud, Sarah," he'd said, his eyes shining. "You have the strength to change the world." His words, his genuine appreciation, were a healing balm to old wounds. It was the validation I'd craved, and never received, from my own parents. Recently, Clara, now a successful graphic designer, got engaged to her college sweetheart, Robert, a kind, intelligent software engineer. The news filled me with immense joy. They were a wonderful couple, their love for each other evident in every glance, every shared smile. Clara was on cloud nine, excitedly planning her wedding, her beautiful engagement ring sparkling on her finger. She posted pictures of her proposal on social media, and soon our relatives were calling to congratulate her. Then, the unexpected happened. Our parents started calling and texting, constantly. After years of near silence, they were suddenly desperate to be involved, gushing about how thrilled they were. Clara and I exchanged puzzled, wary looks. Why this sudden flood of attention? Why now, when they'd kept their distance for so long? Mom was the first to broach the subject. During a strained phone call with Clara, she started asking questions about Robert, about their wedding plans. Clara, ever polite, tried to be vague, citing her hectic work schedule. But then Dad jumped on the line, his voice booming with false bonhomie, insisting they deserved to meet Robert to be involved. Their convincing game, honed by years of societal maneuvering, was strong. Reluctantly, Clara agreed to a meetup, but only if I came with her. Surprisingly, our parents agreed. The day of the meeting arrived. We met at their house, the atmosphere thick with unspoken tensions. They greeted us with forced, overly bright smiles, trying to act like one big, happy family for Robert's benefit. Albert, bless him, already knew the full, unvarnished story of our family dynamics. Clara had been completely honest with him. The conversation was stilted, awkward. Then our parents steered the topic towards the wedding. They started subtly, then not so subtly, hinting about how wonderful it would be for Dad to walk Clara down the aisle, for Mom to be an integral part of the ceremony. It was about showcasing a united front, Dad declared, avoiding family embarrassment in front of Robert's family and their society friends. Their narcissistic need for image management was in overdrive. Clara and I exchanged a look. It was clear now. Their sudden interest wasn't about celebrating Clara's happiness. It was about their own social standing, their fear of being questioned by relatives if they weren't prominently featured in their daughter's wedding. Clara, with a grace and composure that made me immensely proud, thanked them for their suggestions. Then, with a confident smile, she dropped the bombshell. "Actually, Mom, Dad," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I've already decided who will walk me down the aisle. Grandpa Joe is going to do it." The stunned silence that followed was profound. Our parents' expressions shifted from feigned warmth to shock, then to a dawning, incredulous anger. They couldn't fathom it. Their daughter choosing our grandfather over them? For such a significant role? "Sweetheart," Dad finally sputtered, his voice tight. "It's tradition for the father to walk his daughter down the aisle. You can't break tradition." "Mom, Dad," Clara said, her voice unwavering, "I don't care about breaking traditions. I want Grandpa to be part of this special moment. He's been there for us, truly there for us, when you both weren't. You are welcome to attend as guests, like many other relatives. But Grandpa will walk me down the aisle." I couldn't help it. A laugh, sharp and unexpected, escaped me. Everyone looked startled. I met my father's furious gaze. "You know, Dad," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "you and Mom forgot how to be parents to us a long, long time ago. You treated us like afterthoughts, like burdens. You have no right, absolutely no right, to demand anything from Clara now." The The truth, raw and unvarnished, hit them hard. They started yelling, their faces red with embarrassment and rage, accusing us of being selfish, cruel, of trying to destroy their reputation. Clara stood her ground, reiterating that their role would be limited, just like any other guest. We left their house that day with the meeting ending on a sour, tense note, but with Clara's decision and her dignity firmly intact. I felt a mix of admiration for her courage and a familiar, weary disappointment in our parents' inability to ever truly understand the consequences of their lifelong neglect and favoritism. Their lack of accountability was, as always, astounding. The days following that explosive meeting were filled with a barrage of angry texts and guilt-tripping voicemails from our parents. Relatives we hadn't heard from in years suddenly felt compelled to weigh in, Chi-Chi siding with Mom and Dad, calling Clara and me selfish, cruel, and disrespectful for not allowing our father his rightful place walking Clara down the aisle. The flying monkeys were out in full force, dispatched to enforce the family's dysfunctional status quo. It was clear our parents were orchestrating a campaign to pressure Clara into changing her mind, not out of genuine parental love, but out of a desperate need to preserve their precious social image. Clara, to her immense credit, remained steadfast. The support from online forums and a few enlightened friends had bolstered her resolve. She'd even shared the full, unvarnished truth with Grandpa Joe about her decision to ask him to walk her down the aisle, and his reaction had been everything we'd hoped for. We drove down to his peaceful little house on Dog River the following weekend, our hearts bubbling with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. When Clara finally told him, her voice thick with emotion, "Grandpa, I want you to walk me down the aisle on my big day. You're the one who's always been there for us, the one who's shown us what unconditional love truly means." His eyes, already crinkled at the corners from a lifetime of smiles, welled up with tears. He pulled Clara into a tight, fierce hug, his voice choked as he whispered how honored, how deeply touched he was. Looking at my usually stoic grandfather, his face illuminated by such raw, tender emotion, I teared up too. We shared a group hug, a small circle of genuine, unwavering love. Grandpa Joe, bless his pragmatic heart, wasn't fazed by the potential backlash from our parents. When we explained their furious reaction, he just chuckled. "Don't you worry your pretty heads about those two," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I can handle your mother. And your father? Well, he knows better than to cross me after that last time. Nothing is going to stop me from walking my beautiful granddaughter down that aisle." His confidence, his unwavering support was like a shield, deflecting the negativity our parents were trying so desperately to hurl our way. My sister sighed in relief, the weight of their disapproval momentarily lifted by his steadfast love. In a particularly odious move, Dad even found a way to contact Robert, Clara's fiancé, on Facebook. He sent Robert a long, rambling message, attempting to manipulate him, appealing to his sense of tradition and his role as the man in the relationship to knock some sense into Clara. He even threatened that he and Mom wouldn't attend the wedding if Robert allowed Clara to go through with this disrespectful charade. Robert's response was a masterpiece of calm, unwavering support. "My fiancée, Clara, is going to do whatever she wants for her wedding, and I stand by her completely. It's your choice to attend or not." The clarity and strength of Robert's reply likely sent shockwaves through our parents, who had probably expected a more submissive, easily swayed reaction. I couldn't help but chuckle imagining the look on Dad's face. The patriarchal assumptions and manipulative tactics had failed spectacularly. As Clara's wedding day approached, we threw ourselves into the final preparations, choosing the perfect theme that reflected her vibrant personality, finalizing her stunning A-line wedding dress, a modern design, nothing like the vintage gown my mother had worn, a subtle but significant choice on Clara's part, meticulously arranging the seating for the guests. It was a whirlwind of joyful activity. I couldn't wait to see my beautiful sister marry the love of her life. The wedding day itself, held at a charming historic venue in downtown Mobile, was everything Clara had dreamed of and more. The Azalea Ballroom looked stunning, filled with white roses and twinkling fairy lights. Guests filled the seats, an air of joy and anticipation surrounding us. There was, however, a noticeable absence. Our parents, in the wake of their failed campaign to control the ceremony, had chosen not to attend. It was a bittersweet moment, a quiet acknowledgement of their decision to prioritize their wounded pride over their daughter's happiness. We respected their choice, though a small part of me ached for the parents they could have been, the family we could have had. The ceremony itself was magical. Clara, radiant in her wedding dress, stood with Grandpa Joe by her side. The love and pride in his eyes were palpable as they walked down the aisle together, a slow, dignified procession. His arm, steady and strong, was linked through hers. The decision to have Grandpa play this pivotal role had been unequivocally the right one, the joy it brought to both him and Clara evident for all to see. The atmosphere was filled with warmth, with genuine emotion, a stark contrast to the performative, image-conscious gatherings our parents usually orchestrated. Clara and Robert exchanged heartfelt vows, their voices thick with emotion, promising a lifetime of love, laughter, and unwavering companionship. The celebration continued long into the night, with dancing, heartfelt toasts, and the shared happiness of everyone present. It was a testament to the fact that family isn't just about blood. It's about love, support, and the courage to choose your own path, to build your own joy, even in the face of disapproval. Life has indeed been going smoothly for us since the wedding. Clara and I made the conscious, and ultimately liberating, decision to block our parents on all platforms. We were done with their negativity, their drama, their constant attempts to gaslight and manipulate us. Our boundaries, once porous and ill-defined, were now firmly in place, protecting our hard-won peace. We still visit Grandpa Joe regularly, cherishing every moment with him, our bond stronger than ever. The journey hasn't been easy. Severing ties with one's parents, even when those ties are toxic, is a painful, complex process. There's a grief involved, a mourning for the relationship you wished you had, the parents you deserved. But as we move forward, our focus remains on building lives filled with positivity, surrounded by those who genuinely love and care for us, those who celebrate our happiness rather than trying to control it. We are cycle breakers, determined not to perpetuate the patterns of emotional neglect and narcissism that clouded our upbringing. This, I hope, is my last update on this particular chapter of our lives. Clara and Robert are blissfully happy, planning their honeymoon in Italy. Leo, our brother, has maintained his distance, still caught in the web of our parents' preferential treatment, perhaps fearing he'll suffer the same fate as us if he steps out of line. We harbor no ill will towards him. He is in many ways another victim of their dysfunctional parenting. As for me, I'm finding a new sense of peace, a lightness that comes from finally letting go of the need for my parents' approval. Their absence at Clara's wedding, while a poignant reminder of their choices, was also a quiet affirmation of our freedom. We chose joy, we chose love. We chose Grandpa Joe, and in doing so we chose ourselves. And that, I've come to realize, is the most important choice of all. The healing journey is ongoing, but for the first time in a long time, the path ahead looks bright, filled with the promise of a future defined not by past hurts, but by present love and a hard-won, deeply cherished peace. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch!